Hello, my friends. Thanks for joining me today with another read along. Today, we are going to do the part two of Jacob marrying Leah and Rachel. When I go through the chapters and I realize this just doesn't stop at chapter 30 and it don't begin in chapter 29. So I do encourage you to read maybe the entire chapter of Genesis. I will put it in the description below to give you the chapters where you can read the beginning of Jacob. And I know in one of I think part one, I said that how his uncle had tricked him in marrying his oldest daughter before he married Rachel. But the word that I was looking for that runs in the family is deception. It goes way back. It's a generational curse, that's what they would call it, because it just didn't start with the uncle, but didn't start with Jacob. It started with the father. So I will put in the description below, and I will give you the chapters to read, and you can read from the beginning up to the end. But since I did say that I was going to do a part two to this, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing a part two. But I do encourage you all to continue reading after we read chapter 30. So today we are going to read chapter 30, Genesis chapter 30. And we're going to conclude with chapter 30. But before we get started, I want to say thank you for reading along with me. Thank you for reading the other stories with me. We have read The Valley of Dry Bones, when Elijah prayed and asked God to strike the army, A Virtuous Wife, The Birth of Jesus, A Woman Caught in Adultery, and God Called Out Mary and Aaron. If you haven't read any of those stories, how about joining me and reading along with me on my page? I appreciate it and I thank you. So do you have your Bible? Well, if you don't have your Bible, please go get your Bible. As I mentioned before, I am reading from a New King James Version Bible. And if you don't have a New King James Version Bible, I still encourage you to read along with me. It may read a little different, but the meaning is still the same. All right, are you ready? Let's get started. This is Genesis, and we're going to read chapter 30. Now, when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said to Jacob, "Give me children, or else I die." And Jacob's anger was aroused against Rachel, and he said, "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?" So she said, "Here is my maid Bilhah. Go into her. She will bear a child on my knees, that I also may have children by her." Then she gave him Bilhah, her maid, as a wife, and Jacob went in to her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, "God has judged me my cause, and he has also heard my cry and given me a son." Therefore she called her son Dan. And Rachel made Bilhah conceive again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, "With great wrestling I have wrestled with my sister, and indeed I have prevailed." So she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had stopped bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her to Jacob as wife. And Leah made Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, "A troop comes." So she called his name Gad. And Leah made Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. Then Leah said, "I am happy, for daughters will call me blessed." So she called his name Asher. Now Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son mandrakes." But she said to her, Is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you take away my son Mandrakes also? And Rachel said, therefore, he will lie with you tonight for your son Mandrakes. When Jacob came out of the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, you must come into me, for I have surely hired you with my son Mandrakes. And he lay with her that night. And God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. Leah said, God has given me my wages because I have given my maid to my husband. So she called his name Issachar. Then Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. And Leah said, God has endowed me with good endowment. Now my husband will dwell with me because I have bore him sixth son. So she called his name Zebulun. Afterward, she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. And she conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my reproach. So she called his name Joseph and said, the Lord shall add to me another son. Wow, they were really busy having babies. See, like the sisters are competing for the attention of the husband. So we're going to read on to verse 25. And it came to pass when Rachel had bore Joseph that Jacob said to Laban, send me away that I may go to my own place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you know my service which I have done for you. And Laban said to him, please stay, if I have found favor in your eyes, for I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake. Well, Laban was smart. He was smart. He realized he was being blessed because Jacob was there, and now he don't want him to leave. But we're going to go to verse 28 to see what happened. Then he said, name me your wages, and I will give it. So Jacob said to him, you know how I have served you, and how your livestock has been with me. For what you had before I came was little, and it is increased to a great amount. The Lord has blessed you since my coming. And now, when shall I also provide my own house? So he said, what shall I give you? And Jacob said, you shall not give me anything. If you will do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep your flocks. Let me pass through all your flocks today, removing from there all the speckles and spotted sheep, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and these shall be my wages. So my righteousness will answer for me in time to come. When the subject of my wages come before you, everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and brown among the lambs will be considered stolen if it is with me. And Laban said, that it were according to your words. So he removed that day the male goats that were speckled and spotted, all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had some white in it, and all the brown ones among the lambs, gave them into the hands of his sons. Then he put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. Now Jacob took for himself rods of green poplar and of the almond and chestnut trees, peeled white strips in them, and exposed the white which was in the rods. And the rods which had peeled he set before the flock in the gutter, in the watering through where the flocks came to drink. so that they should conceive when they came to drink. So the flocks conceived before the rods, and the flocks brought forth, streaked, speckled, and spotted. Then Jacob separated the lambs and made the flocks face toward the streaks, and all the brown in the flock of Laman, but he put his own flocks by themselves and did not put them with Laman's flocks. And it came to pass, whenever the stronger livestock conceived, that Jacob placed the rods before the eyes of the livestock in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the flocks were feeble, he did not put them in. So the feebler were Laman's, and the stronger Jacob. Thus the man became exceedingly prosperous, and had large flocks, females and male servants, and camels and donkeys. Now, this is the end of chapter 30. And I know you're probably wondering, what's going on? So you're going to have to read chapter 31 to get an understanding of what actually happened. See, Jacob had made his flock look healthier than Laman, and then Laman's sons accused Jacob of stealing their father's flock. But you would have to read chapter 31 to see what happened. So if you want me to do chapter 31, just let me know in the comments below, and I will do chapter 31. But I am going to list in the comments below, in the bio below, the chapters that you can read, so you can read back further than where we started, which was chapter 29, because it's a long story, and it's an interesting story too. So I do encourage you to go back to read it. So I'm going to put in the bio below which in the chapters that you should start reading, so you can get a better understanding of the family. It's a family thing. So with that being said, I thank you for joining me. I thank you for tuning in. If it's anything you want to read together, put it in the comments below, and we would do just that. We will read together. And I hope you are enjoying these read along with me, because I know I am. And I thank you all for joining me today. So with that being said, be blessed, be safe, and be a blessing, and have an amazing day. God bless you.